Who are you?
Whoever you want me to be.
Don't say I never gave you anything.
It's feeling epic.
3 words. 8 letters.
I remember everything.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Previously on Teen TV. I'm Jillian Benani.
And I'm Claire Wojciechowski.
And we have a very special episode for you today. We are talking all about shipping and our top couples.
Yes. Now, for those of you that don't know, and if you're here, I'm sure you do, but just in case, shipping is when you are rooting for 2 characters to get together. And oftentimes I think it sort of originated with characters that weren't together on screen, but you wanted them to be. And so you would say, I ship X and X type of thing. Can also be referred to people in real life, although for today, we're just keeping it to the folks on our favorite teen TV shows.
Well, that's what I like to keep it to.
Yes.
Keep it to the TV, to the fantasy world, and not the real world.
We don't need to ship real life people. That's crossing a boundary.
Although I do ship Taylor and Travis. I'll just say that.
Well, they're actually together, so that's fair.
Okay, good.
It's a little slightly different.
Yeah, I like that. I am a big fan of shipping. Like, I'm a big shipper. Like, when I like a couple, I like them. Like, I am all in. I become obsessed with them. Maybe not super healthy, but I think it's the romantic in me. Like, I just love it so much.
Yeah, I think you like to dive in, and you like something like you can root for, and something that you. When I say you, I mean both of us. I think that's what people in general. You want like something to sort of like almost manifest and make happen, and like it gives you like a reason to tune in. It's it's exciting to sort of see hopefully your favorite couple come together.
I mean, isn't that the best in these shows when we get like a couple and we're rooting for them to be together and then they get together? I mean, it's just like such a good feeling.
I mean, it's like nothing else when you're watching them for episodes and it feels like an eternity and they finally kiss and it's just like,
I get high off of it, I think.
Yeah, it's so satisfying.
The adrenaline rush is just so good. But yeah, I feel like this is my sports. You know, like shipping these couples, this is like the team that I'm rooting for. This is as close to like being a fan of sports that I'll ever get. So I just think it's a fun aspect of these shows because relationships are a big part of these shows. And, characters can be with, go from one character to another, and maybe we ship them with one character and not the other, and maybe people break up and get back together, or maybe they don't get back together. Maybe we like them at one point and then turns out they really weren't that great together. There's so many dynamics to this, and I think it's such a big part of these teen shows, and I think it's such a fun element of it.
I think it's always interesting when you find yourself shipping one couple sort of at the beginning of the show, and then your allegiances shift as the series goes on. You're like, oh, but actually, like, maybe like this person is like a better match for them, and like, or you're shipping people that like maybe aren't front and center. They're just kind of in the background, but you're like, oh, there's something there between those two. I would like to see more of that, and then it becomes like a real thing. Like it's always exciting.
It always starts with like a little glance and maybe a little, knee touch. And then, 22 episodes later, they finally kiss.
Yes. They really make you wait for it, don't they?
I love a slow burn waiting for it, though. Like, I think that is like one of my favorite things with these couples on these shows, like a good slow burn where it takes a while for, a couple to get together. I just, it's just worth it so much more in the end, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's really tricky to find that balance between like a slow burn and to an actual like the moment has arrived, because sometimes you can lose it. Sometimes it's only a slow burn. Yeah. And then it happens and then you're like, okay, now what do we do with them? And I think the best couples, the best ships, the reason why we ship them is because they can maintain that excitement and that chemistry even after they're together.
Which is hard to do. That is really not easy to do in these shows.
Right.
I think too, these characters are growing, they're evolving, and then sometimes maybe at one point in the show it really made sense for them to be with one character, but then as they grow and evolve, you know, it makes sense for them to be with this other character. And it's just a fun journey to go on.
Yeah, I feel like you're like 20 different people when you're a teenager, like over the course of that, and you're constantly changing. And I think that, you know, who you are interested in changes right along with that.
Agreed. Now, what are some of your like favorite tropes in these teen romances? So we talked a little bit about the slow burn, which I'm a big fan of. Like, what are some of your favorite tropes? We got like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers. There's so many.
I am a big fan of when opposites attract.
Yes.
I think we've talked about this before. I like it when two very different people, whether that's like different personalities or they're from different worlds or different interests or whatever, they're sort of opposite in some way, that they find common ground and come together. I always like a relationship like that, where I feel like the characters are balancing each other out, or they're opening the other person up to something new that they might not have considered. So that's sort of like my favorite type of ship.
I agree. I think too, in like the high school world, it's way more interesting to see two characters who might have never normally interacted, and to see them come together. Because I feel like in high school, a lot of times people just like stick to their group and don't really go outside of that. And in these shows, it's really fun to explore people getting outside of their group. And, you know, forming a romantic bond with somebody maybe that they wouldn't have normally even have talked to. So I'm a big fan of the opposites attract too. It's a good one.
Yeah, take a little risk when you're in high school. It's a high school relationship, like date somebody, you know, off the wall.
And I feel like it never happens in real life.
No.
So that's why it's so fun in these shows to actually see that happen. You know, in high school, I was really waiting for, you know,
your opposite to come.
The opposite to come on in. Did not happen.
Who would have been your opposite in high school?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like I was a little bit more like kind of like average. So, but yeah, did I dream of the popular, you know, football player scooping me up out of nowhere? Yes, of course.
Yes.
Of course. There was one time I remember in Spanish class where I was sat next to like the quarterback of the football team when I was like a sophomore, and I think he was like a year older than me, and I had to like help him with Spanish a lot because obviously he wasn't that great at it. I mean, we were living these stereotypes.
Were you tutor girl?
I kind of was, I think. And then the teacher was like switched up all the seat assignments except ours because she was like, I think you two like make a good pair, like you like help him out like a lot and he seems to like get it with you. And I was like, oh my God, like am I being set up on a romance?
It was a slow burn.
Well, it was a slow nothing. Let me tell you that. Nothing happened. All right. I will say, you know, sophomore year was a little rough. I wasn't looking my best. I think I wore the same headband to school like every day after swim practice. So, you know, I will say I am not a fan really of friends to lovers in these shows.
I am not either.
Which is interesting because that is my relationship in real life, is friends to lovers, but not what I want to watch in these shows. I think it's always boring and kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Like it just like you want to just them to stay as friends.
Yeah, I don't want them to like complicate like a friendship that I've already invested in watching.
Yeah.
With like suddenly someone develops feelings.
Exactly.
Like it's just like, why can't we have both? Why can't people be friends and people be, you know, in a relationship type thing?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I also do, though, a caveat. I generally don't like friends to lovers, but I am not opposed to, and this is very specific, but like
fun.
When there's like a friend group, like you have more than 6 or more people in a cast, and you put together 2 characters who are in the same group but like not necessarily close friends.
Okay, yeah, I'm
you know
down
what I
for
mean?
that. Yeah.
So like this is not my favorite ship, but like I don't know, like Dan and Blair, like they're in the same friend group, but they're not really friends.
Yeah. They're still somewhat opposite.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like that I'm like a fine with.
I like that because that's like 2 characters maybe who you thought would never get together and they get together.
Exactly.
So I do think that that's fun. I feel like shows love to do that like around season 4 or 5 when we're getting a little bored.
Sure. Yeah. I'm thinking mostly of like the original Beverly Hills 90210, which had a big cast.
Yeah.
And so they did that a lot. They were always like in the friend group, and then all of a sudden these people are dating and you're like, you barely interacted before. But you know, that I'm okay with.
Similar to Opposites Attract, I also like Enemies to Lovers, which is very similar to Opposites Attract. But I feel like there's a level of banter that comes along with Enemies to Lovers that I really like. And I like the trajectory of seeing them as not getting along, they're enemies, then they form a little bit of a friendship, and then that friendship, turns into a romance. And I think that always ends well.
Yeah, I think like it offers them like a hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
The fact that because they might not be opposites, they might be too similar. Like they're both super competitive at something.
Yeah.
And that's why they're enemies, is because they're, in the running for something. So it is, I do like
Veronica
that.
Mars is a really good Enemies to Lovers with Veronica and Logan, which is probably the top example of that really working out.
Yeah.
But that's a good one.
Yeah, and I think that's what's fun about the ships is that like these relationships can be more than one trope.
Yeah.
They can be complex and layered in multiple things at once.
We love some layers.
We do.
We need some layers.
We like to unpack.
When you have 22 episodes in a season, you better have some layers.
Yeah.
There.
We can't keep it surface level.
Well, let's get into some of our top ships. What is one of your top ships, Claire?
So one of my top ships is Joey and Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
I mean, classic, good one. We grew up with them.
Yes, we did. And again, an example of like in the same friend group, but not really good friends.
Yeah.
And then they become friends first and then become, a couple.
Yeah.
And fall in love.
And again, another example of like they did this like a couple seasons into the show, and it really spiced things up.
Yeah. It shook the creek, it turned it all upside down, and caused repercussions for many seasons after, which was something really interesting. But I just think like the two of them are a bit opposite again.
Yeah.
They are, Joey's very studious and very serious and has these big dreams of like leaving Cape Side and going off and doing great things in the world, in the city specifically. And Pacey's just kind of like a goofball who like doesn't really have a direction, doesn't really have a purpose, but yet they balance each other out. He makes her laugh and she motivates him to be better, at least for a while, and then it goes south and then it gets better, and but I think he just needed to grow up. And they really just sort of I don't know, they're just so cute together, and I just love them so much.
They are so cute together. And those episodes, where they have them like starting to hang out and like be friends more, and then you can see that he's starting to fall for her. I mean, those are some of my favorite episodes of Dawson's Creek ever.
They're so good.
Joshua Jackson really sold all that for me. And I just feel like he was such a good heartthrob on that show. Like, he kind of reminds me of like an old like Hollywood kind of like character a little bit. Like
see it.
He fast talks, like he is very kind of like he swoops in and like saves the day a lot, which I love that.
Yeah.
For men in these shows. But it's not like Joey needed saving.
No, but like he helps her.
Yes, exactly. And he loves a big grand gesture. I mean, when he buys her that wall, it's just like amazing TV. I feel like they are just they're hard to top. I think they're a really great couple. I also appreciate that they did them right. They got them together. We saw them together for a little bit. And then we did break them apart. And, I don't like the breakup at the prom. It's not great.
It's tough.
But, let's be realistic. They were not going to last in college together. That just was not going to work. So I do appreciate that they didn't just have them like, oh, no, we're fine. We're making it work. Like, we needed some conflict there. So I thought that they did a good job of why they broke up.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then when they come back together in the end, it's just so great.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I love it. I love that final episode where you see them together. She's with him. It's beautiful.
I mean, it's so good when she like admits to Jen that like she's always known who she should be with. And it's like, and you're like, but who is it?
I know.
And it's Pacey.
It's so good. Also, the scenes of them in the later episodes when they're stuck in the
Kmart.
Yes. Oh my God.
A great episode.
When he says that he thinks about kissing her all the time. I mean, it is like, that is just so amazing. And like, it just was such a good scene. The amount of like YouTube videos that I've watched of like the progression of Joey and Pacey and like their best moments, like I'm embarrassed to say it's been quite a bit. So
I love them. I love them forever.
yeah,
My number one.
definitely a top one.
What about you? Top ship.
Okay, so my top ship, I've talked about them before. I mean, it's on my shirt, always and forever. It's Nathan and Haley. You know, I fell in love with them when I was watching One Tree Hill in middle school. I think one of the reasons why I really like them is it's like the jock falling for like the tutor girl. Like, again, it's like opposites attract. We also have the layer in there of Lucas being her best friend.
Yes.
And I really love when the three of them also like come together as like a family. And she's the one who really brought those brothers together. I just think there were a lot of layers to that relationship. And I mean, again, seeing him fall for her and fall harder, there's just nothing hotter than that in these shows.
Yeah.
You know, you expect that she's going to kind of like fawn all over him or something. Totally not the case. He falls harder for her, and it is just such good TV in my opinion.
I mean, they are in the pantheon
Yeah.
of great teen couples, and like even when they have their ups and downs,
Yeah.
like they're never fully broken up. Really.
Right.
Like you never believe it. You're like, but they're gonna get back together.
Yeah.
You, like they have to.
I mean, when she left to go on tour, I was like 14 in middle school when those episodes came out, and I was devastated that they were apart. It was weird because I was so happy that she was like on a tour. I was like, good for her. Like, she should have gone. But like, Nathan being devastated had me devastated. Like, I was like counting down the weeks for them to like get back together. Like, I needed them to be together. And I don't think that there was another couple that I really felt so strongly about that needed to be together. Like, I just think that like they couldn't have broken them up because it was like too good almost. Like, well, and you also have the layer of them getting married in high school. So it's like, are you going to have them like get divorced? Like, that would have really killed me at 14.
Yeah, it is tricky when like you already have them get married. So like, how do you keep them dramatic? How do you like create tension in their relationships? And they found ways.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think it's hard because I do think they get a little boring in like the later seasons of the show.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they kept them together pretty much like the entire time. We don't really have examples of that. But what are you going to do? Like have Nathan date Brooke? Like that just like wouldn't have made sense.
no, and
So-
they tried to like retcon that a little bit
Yeah.
with like that sex tape thing, and you're like,
I hated that.
and it's like it's not believable. He has the wrong haircut.
Right.
It's just so bad, and it's like just for the sake of drama, they create this like fake plot line that happened
know.
before the show started. It's like, come on.
Don't even talk to me about some of season 4. Also, like, I'm sorry, did Haley just like not even kiss a boy before Nathan? Like, we hear nothing about her previous like
Right?
love life.
No, the only thing we get is like a reference to Dawson's Creek in
Right.
in the pilot when she says to Lucas, "I'm not gonna." She's like, "I love you, but not in a Joey loves Dawson kind of way."
Yeah.
which I thought was brilliant. When I watched that, I was like, "Oh, thank God!"
I know. I loved the Lucas Haley friendship. I
Yes.
thought that was so great, and I think that her relationship with Nathan like elevated that friendship in
Yeah.
a way that was like really smart for the show. But you're telling me that Haley didn't make out with one of those River Court boys? Like, come on. She
Yeah.
definitely did. I think they should have made that a backstory. Like
That would have been more
That he
interesting.
found that, but you know. One Tree Hill had some issues, which is for another episode. But the issue they did not have was Nathan and Haley. I also thought those two just had really great chemistry throughout the entire show run. And I think that that's also what made them really great. And I think that's hard to do.
for sure.
So I could go on for hours about this, but
Well, let's
I digress.
let's shift to another couple. One of my second of my top 3 ships is Stiles and Lydia from Teen Wolf.
Love.
I love them too. Another slow burn.
Yeah, very slow.
Very slow. Stiles is in love with Lydia from the get-go.
Yeah.
She is dating Jackson. She's like a popular girl, cool girl.
Doesn't even know who he is.
No, and thinks he's kind of a dork. And then but then he sees her immediately for who she is.
Yeah.
Like when they're at the dance at the end of season 1, and he basically like yells at her. He's like, "Get out there and dance with me. You're so smart, blah, blah, blah." And
Yeah.
she's like, wow, she's like, I'll be winning the Fields Medal, not a Nobel Prize or whatever. It's so good. Like he sees how smart she is because she pretends to be dumb for boys, which is like, come on.
That was a thing back then.
I know, and they make us wait until like, I think it's season 5.
Yes.
When they finally like they don't even kiss yet. It's just like he just says I love you and she like doesn't say anything, and it's so heartbreaking because then she forgets him.
Yeah. They only have 2 kisses in the entire run of the show, and one of them is for her to calm him down.
Yes, it's not a real kiss.
Exactly. And then the other one is finally that one in season 5.
Right, when he comes back from the Ghost Riders and she's like, I didn't say it back, and he says you didn't have to, and they kiss for the first like, oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
And then he goes and like leaves the show, but they're still together. But Stiles and Lydia.
I wish we could have seen them together a little bit more, you know, because I think that it's like, if I'm waiting so long, I need to be able to like see them together a little bit. That's just, you know, me. I want them to see them cute and coupley and, you know, being romantic together. So like I like a slow burn, but I'm like, you gotta get them together.
I know. We do get them as like as friends, as like a team, as a duo. Like, you know, at first like she has no time for him, and then she learns who he is, and once they're all on the same page about the supernatural stuff, the two of them, you know, spend a lot of time together because they're on, you know, they're part of Scott's pack. Yeah. And so they're working together a lot. But they both, you know, they date other people.
I know.
Before they finally get together, and it just takes so long. But when they do, it's just like,
it's great.
It's so great.
Totally worth the wait for sure.
Absolutely.
They also remind me a lot of Seth and Summer, actually. They have like that banter together. You know, Dylan O'Brien is kind of doing a Seth Cohen-y type of thing for sure. She's like the popular girl in school, very similar to Summer.
Yeah.
He's been in love with her the entire time. So I really did like the parallels of those 2 shows.
Yeah, I agree. When I was first watching the show, I was like, oh, this is Seth Cohen. But like maybe like a little like more modern and quippier and less like indie type thing.
I feel like we haven't gotten a relationship like that in a while on one of these shows.
No, I know. Bring back a quippy couple.
I know.
Or quippy boy.
I need some good banter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 2 couple is Finn and Rachel from Glee. You know,
tell us about them.
Yeah. So, well, again, we have a jock falling for like the nerd in school, or outcast type of girl. So I clearly love that trope. But yeah, when Glee came around, I really went through a big Finn and Rachel Finchel phase. I'm embarrassed to talk about this, but I felt like I had to bring it up and be honest with our listeners. That I literally was obsessed with Finn and Rachel. You know, I went to go see Glee when they were filming in the city, and it was a Finchel scene, and I really freaked out at being able to see that. You know, I think also just the element of them singing together really added a lot to that for me. I loved it when they did their songs together. I think the 2 of them just had really good on-screen chemistry too.
For sure.
And it took them a while to get together in the show. And it was definitely worth the wait for me when they're singing that song at regionals together, that Journey song. It is so good.
Oh my gosh. They did.
What song is it? I'm trying to think.
Is it Faithfully?
Yeah. Faithfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit this.
You know what? You shouldn't be, because Glee had its moments.
Yes.
It was a lot of things. It was a real roller coaster, but there were some really great parts of Glee, and I do think that the Finn and Rachel relationship was part of it.
Yeah.
It was so sweet, and I think knowing the chemistry that they had on and off screen really helped. I think it was one of the more positive aspects.
Yeah.
I did not love when they were going to get married.
Oh no. I think that's kind of when I started to like fall off them. I was like, we cannot have a marriage plot point in this again, please.
No.
Like, luckily they don't go through with it.
Yes. But it's a bummer that like the way that things ended was they were broken up because of Corey Monteith passing. But
I know.
yeah, they were
It is sad.
a really a really sweet couple, and we'll always have those recordings, those soundtracks of the two of them.
Love their songs together. I think too, you're right in the sense that there was so much craziness going on in Glee, and like a lot of different plot points, and things kind of like went off the rails a little bit. But one thing that was like reminiscent of all these teen shows was the Finn and Rachel aspect. So I think that's why I really gravitated towards that.
Yeah,
But yeah, number one Finchel fan over here for sure.
I love that.
I will say with the marriage plot points, I do think the only one that worked for me was Nathan and Haley in One Tree Hill.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to that real quickly. Again, you know,
do
I'm just
make
going to be
it-
circling back to that.
They make it work.
They shockingly make it work. I think that was like one of the stronger things on the show. It's totally crazy, but they really sell it to you in a way that like, you were like, okay, I get it.
I know.
I'll take it.
You kind of believed it. I mean, times were different in 2003.
Yeah,
so-
that's also true.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you? What's your next couple? What's your next ship for us?
My number 3 ship is Hanna and Caleb from Pretty Little Liars.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Tell me more.
Pretty Little Liars is a bonkers show.
Yes.
7 seasons of absolute chaos. The plot, I couldn't begin to unravel it.
Yeah,
but
I don't even think you would be able to give us a synopsis of that show.
I mean,
as our synopsis queen.
4 girls get chased by a mysterious figure called A.
Yeah.
That is the most basic plot summary possible. But Hanna and Caleb, we see them start to get together in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb is like this hacker tech guy who's like kind of shady and like wears a beanie, and like they go to him for help with some stuff with uncovering who A is, and then he like turns out he's like kind of homeless, so he's like borrowing Hannah's like shower, and there's a scene in season 1 where he's in the shower and her mom doesn't know that he's there.
Classic.
So she has to jump into the shower with him. She can't just let
I
her
love
mom in the
those.
bathroom, because like girls would like let the mom, like if you were a girl, your mom could come in the bathroom and get something out of the cabinet or whatever.
Yeah, my mom did this to me a lot, by the way.
Yeah, so in order to like convince her mom that she's in the shower, she jumps in the shower fully clothed and he's naked, and at one point she looks and he clocks her looking, and it's like, and
I
just-
mean,
it's-
I'm eating this up over here.
it's some
I love
hot
that.
stuff for like a teen
Yeah.
romance.
Yeah.
But they're adorable. They mostly stay together throughout the show. They break up here and there, but like you're always like, again, it's like they're gonna get back together.
Yeah.
Like he and I think it's one of the only relationships where like they stay pretty honest with each other.
Yeah.
Throughout the other ones, there's some shady business going on, and there's some bad elements. And the two of them, it's like a strong relationship, and she trusts him. He's in on like a lot of the bad stuff. Like she tells him all the crazy stuff that's going on, and he tries to help, which I think is different from the other relationships on the show. And then we know that they end up together in the end, which is great. So Hanna and Caleb,
that moment where they come together in the end is very great.
it's lovely.
Yeah. No, that's a very cute couple, and much better than that teacher-student relationship in Pretty Little Liars.
Exactly. I was a fan of it at the time, and looking back, I'm like, no,
That one probably doesn't hold up as much,
No, it doesn't.
unfortunately.
No.
But, you know, a different time.
Yeah, different time. just 10 short years ago.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
we're still learning.
Yeah. What about you? Another teen ship that you like?
So this one is a bit controversial, I would say, but you know, we got to spice it up a little bit here. A ship that I love is Klaus and Caroline from The Vampire Diaries. Is Klaus a psychopath killer, killed multiple people on this show? Yes. But he loved Caroline, and she definitely had feelings for him. There is no denying that.
No, she absolutely did. She tells him as much.
Exactly. I just like those two had so much chemistry together. I also like that it was a little bit of opposites of he's kind of this like crazy killer, like, you know, scary vampire, and she's more like preppy and like the, you know, the popular cheerleader girl, kind of like the one always like trying to make people happy. Like I really feel like she could have like changed him. And I mean, I think she also did a little bit, like she did make him a better person, I would say.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a shame that we never saw them fully together.
I mean, when their scenes together like are so hot.
Electric.
They're like, it's crazy.
I know.
Even like before anything really happens, like when
Yeah.
they're just sitting and talking, like she's not into him yet, and he's like, the way that he looks at her, it's like, melting.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I know it's like controversial because, you know, he is like a villain on the show, but I do think if he never got his own spinoff and like they just kept him on the Vampire Diaries, I think that there was a world where the two of them were like fully together.
Yeah.
And didn't just have that one sex scene.
Yeah. I also think like there was like that emotional, like you said, that redemption aspect.
Yeah.
Because when there's that time when she's been bitten by Klaus and she's dying.
I love this scene.
And Tyler's like, you did this, you have to watch her die. And she tells him, if you're capable of love, you're capable of being saved. And that's what gets him to save her. And it's like,
it's like so beautiful.
because like you see, like he can't bear to watch her die, even though he's the one that did this to her. It's complicated. It's complicated.
It's complicated. And I think sometimes I like when things are a little bit complicated because it makes it more interesting. There's a lot of layers there. I think too, like she brought out a, you know, funnier, like lighter side in Klaus, which I thought was really beautiful. I think I liked what they both brought out in each other.
Yeah.
I think that I love that he believed in her and believed how strong she was and how smart she was and like how, you know, good of a person she was. And I like that, you know, she brought out, you know, a more human side out of Klaus and, you know, and like a lighter kind of like funnier side. And their scenes together are so goddamn cute.
I mean, I could watch just all of their scenes on a loop. It's
like she is the one who like made him seem not as much as a villain.
Yeah, she's the one that softened him, I think, and did a lot of that prep work before he goes and gets his own spinoff.
I know. And I'm sorry, but we just needed to see this relationship through. This keeps me up at night. Like, this is my Roman Empire. This is what I think about all the time.
Is Claire
Yes. I mean, that one scene at the graduation where he says, he's your first love, I intend to be your last. Like, whoever wrote that should have gotten a freaking Emmy because that is such a good line. And the moment is so amazing. And we're talking about vampires who are going to live forever. So it's just like, he's like, I'll be there. I'll wait for you. And it's amazing.
It's hard to top.
I would have loved to have seen them kind of like travel around the world, like have Klaus show Caroline like Europe and like just like all of the world.
Yeah, I also think it's funny that like they ultimately bond over being parents.
Oh, I know.
Like in later seasons, like when she calls him
in the originals.
Yeah. Well, I think also like in the Vampire Diaries after the twins are born, she's like,
that's right. I forgot about that.
She's like on the run or something, and she calls him and he can hear the babies like fussing in the background and he's like giving her tips on how to like calm them. It's like so sweet. And then like
she's like with Stefan at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this phone call did more for me than what Stefan has done for Caroline this entire time.
It's so good. And you're like, oh, bring him back.
I know. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I realized my problem with Stefan and Caroline is?
Okay.
My issue with Caroline is that we never really saw them happy for that long. Like, and I feel like that was something that they like ripped away from us a little bit in the show. And we just never really saw that like them being super happy. Something was always coming up like that was like ripping them apart. And so then I just like don't fully buy into it. Like I need to like, especially for how they got together and stuff, I need to see you together for a little bit.
Yeah, I understand.
That's just my issue with it. You know, I wanted more. So I was interested in it, but I wanted more.
I get it. You wanted more from them to invest in the relationship. You wanted more from Klaus and Caroline.
I always want more in my romances. It's clearly what I mean. I'm like, enough with the, you know, stabbing vampires in the heart. Let's get back to the romance a little bit here. Come on. Can't we all just be happy for one episode?
Okay. So speaking of, are there any ships that like you were shipping but never actually happened, like never came to fruition?
Yes. So there's one that comes to mind.
Okay.
So it's in Gilmore Girls, and it is with Tristan, played by Chad Michael Murray, you know, 2000s king, and Rory. So I just feel like it was a missed opportunity again of this like popular bad boy getting with the more like nerdy outsider girl. I feel like they were going to explore that, but then Chad Muckamura got One Tree Hill, so we had to leave the show. And I do just feel like it was a missed opportunity. I think it would have been fun to see those two opposites in a relationship together, or not even in a relationship. I could have just seen them like, you know, hang out a little bit and like see how that worked. We got the one kiss with them. And that was it. And I wanted a little bit more.
I know.
They were teasing it.
They were.
It was a big tease.
And I liked them together, too. I thought that they were sweet. I thought that he was, you know, somebody that she had a little bit more in common with than Dean, but was still opposite of her, and that he was like a troublemaker and he wasn't always the kindest. And it was so sad when he had to leave for military school.
I know.
Was like,
that was a sad ending for Tristan.
Yeah. I was like, he didn't deserve that.
It was dark. Well, I think that we wanted to see Rory make him a better person.
Yes.
Like, we wanted that storyline to play out, and it got cut short.
We wanted her to fix him.
I know. We love it when the girl fixes the guy. It is so great. It's like literally all I've been talking about this entire episode is I love when the girl fixes the guy. Just good TV. It's good every time.
I do think we get a little bit of that. Like, they revisit that type of character in the college years with Logan. Like, I think Logan is so similar to Tristan.
Yeah.
Like this rich boy who grew up entitled, goes to these private schools. He's blonde. He's kind of a jerk. But then, like, for whatever reason, like, is intrigued by Rory. Like,
they even look a little similar.
They do look
honestly.
a little similar.
Yeah, they're that same haircut.
I know, that spiky blonde hair, just one's a little shorter. But
that spiky blonde hair did it for me in the early 2000s.
Oh my God.
I'll tell you that.
And did it ever. I was right there too.
But yeah, that is such a good point. Like, they do kind of bring back that character with Logan. Like, I wonder if like they had Tristan stick around the show, if they wouldn't then have done a Logan character storyline later on, because it might have been similar.
Yeah.
So
true.
Interesting stuff. You know, we're just rewriting these shows in our heads here.
Creating fanfic on the spot.
Well, I am a fan of a fanfic, so
no shame in that game.
And I think it's because in a fanfic you see them like the couple more together. So I'm like, I need more. I want more. I want, you know, I need it all.
Yeah.
Is there a couple that you wanted to get together that didn't get together?
There is. I'm gonna circle it right back to the Vampire Diaries universe.
Love it.
I mean, I know I said that I wanted Klaus and Caroline to raise those kids together, but I'm going to talk about their daughters getting together, actually.
Oh, love that.
So one couple, it was barely hinted at, but like they acknowledged that it was a possibility, was Hope and Josie on Legacies, which was the Vampire Diaries spinoff. So Hope is Klaus's daughter, Josie is Caroline's daughter, and they never get together. Nothing ever like romantic happens. But Josie is like a queer character. Hope we only see her date boys, but like who knows?
Yeah.
And they talk about how they didn't get along for years because Josie, I think, burned something of Hope's, and they find out it's because she liked her and couldn't tell her, like something.
Right. Yeah.
You know, one of those like things that I like you, so I'm going to be mean to you so that you don't know type of thing.
Yeah. Love that in a show.
Yeah. That juvenile toxic behavior.
Yeah.
So we find out that that Josie had a crush on Hope, and Hope's kind of like, oh, like she's kind of like intrigued by it and finds it sweet. And then they end up becoming just friends. They sort of fight over the same boy for a little bit, but ultimately end up as friends and on the same side. But I always, in the back of my mind, was like, oh, it would have been fun if we could have like seen them at least try things out.
Yeah. I feel like that would have been like a full circle moment too, like for the series as like Klaus and Caroline's kids. Like, I think that just like the nostalgia of that like would have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been really fun.
Yeah.
And you know, they can swap stories about the parents and be like, oh, well, I remember your dad, and you know, we used to bone in the woods.
That would have been great.
Yeah,
we really
any
time we could mention Klaus and Caroline in this, we would have loved it. So pay attention, writers.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my pick, Josie and Hope. I wish we would have seen something of them, but alas.
Well, so we have listed our top 3 ships. Do you have any honorable mentions that you want to bring up that we did not discuss here?
You know, I was a fan of Betty and Jughead on Riverdale in the high school years.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was another one where, like, based on the IP, the original comics, you know, Betty and Archie are together, and they lean towards that at the very, very beginning of the series, where Betty kind of has a crush on Archie and he's interested in Veronica. And then after a few episodes in, we start to get, you know, Betty and Jughead are hanging out. They're same type of thing. Like they always kind of knew each other and like had a mutual friend in Archie, but they weren't friends and they become friends. They're trying to solve a murder. And then they start dating. And they quickly form this deep bond. Like they're basically like playing house for most of their teen years. And it got messy and murky, and I admit that I jumped off the Riverdale train post high school years.
I think we all did, unfortunately. Yeah.
But I liked high school Betty and Jughead.
I did too. I thought they were really sweet together, and I really enjoyed them like coming together to like solve a mystery. And I feel like Betty, brought out a lot in Jughead, and really like accepted him for who he was, and they just brought out the best in each other again. And I feel like I really like that in these like teen relationships. And they were really cute together. I was a fan of them. I was rooting for them every week. And I mean, I also fell off the Riverdale train. I never even saw her with Archie, so I don't know if I would have liked that better. But I have a hard time switching ships like that. Mm-hmm. So it's Betty and Jughead still for me. Yeah.
Honorable mentions for you?
I'm going to have to talk about Chuck and Blair. Another controversial couple on one of these shows, but I did really like them together on Gossip Girl. I thought they did a good job of always, having them together, bringing them apart, bringing them back together again, but maybe not fully back together. And then they end up together in the end of the series. But I feel like that was the couple on Gossip Girl that I was always rooting for. Their scenes together were so fun and like electric, and, them kind of like bantering together. And it was just, they were like a crazy couple. And I thought it was like fun. It was, I know there was a lot of toxic stuff in that relationship. I'm not saying that there wasn't. But you can't deny that like the two of them, had a electric thing together.
Yeah, they had chemistry, and I think their scenes were always like what I looked forward to on the show. Like I was always like, what are Chuck and Blair gonna do this week? Yeah. What shenanigans are they up to?
They were always getting into shenanigans, and it was so fun, and they were still always there for each other even when they weren't together. And I think when they were apart, you were really rooting for them to get back together, because you're like, you two understand each other in a way that nobody else does. Right. So you need to be together.
Yeah. They couldn't really find anybody to be with Chuck other than Blair. Like they tried that French girl, and she went away quickly. And like Blair dated some other people and almost got married, but or did get married, I suppose. But yeah.
Well, they always showed though those two at least in scenes together, even when they were apart. Yeah. Which I always really appreciated. And Gossip Girl is just a little bit of a crazier show. Yeah. That, like, you kind of needed a crazy couple at the forefront.
Yes.
Now it's time for As If rants. So, Claire, you're up first. Producer Jessie, please start the clock for 30 seconds.
Ready, set, go.
I'm sorry, but Dawson...
Keep going.
Dawson and Joey as a couple, as if. You know how I feel about a friends to lovers ship. I am not a fan of it, especially when it is so imbalanced, as Joey being in love with Dawson for years and him not giving her a second thought. And every time she tries to establish a relationship, he just fumbles the fucking bag and then acts like a jerk when she finds a real relationship with Pacey. Please get out of my life. Get out of Joey's life. Let them be happy.
I mean, I applaud that. I agree with everything that you said. Dawson can go eat dirt. Like, the way that he behaved after Pacey said he had feelings for Joey was absolutely ridiculous. I understand also that they, like, snuck around behind his back for, like, 2 weeks. But, like, they had to see if they had something before, like, going off and telling all of Cape Side. Mm-hmm. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous when, like, he was like, well, you hid it. You were sneaking around. It's like... let them like figure it out before telling you first.
And also, but like, she's not your property.
I know.
Like, she's your best friend that you treated like shit. And like, she's allowed to move on and be with whomever she wants, including your other friend. Like,
I know.
It's not like your brother. It's he's your friend. Like,
Dawson never came back from that, in my opinion.
No.
It was bad.
Fatal
bad. Yeah. So really enjoyed that one.
Thank you.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Set, go.
Serena ending up with Dan on Gossip Girl, as if. Serena should have ended up with Nate. Nate got a horrible ending on that show. Didn't end up with anybody that we know of when he is hot, hot, hot. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous. Dan sucked, especially towards the end of the show. I feel like he never actually understood Serena. They were a high school relationship that never should have translated to later on in the show. They would never end up married. It just made no sense, especially with him being revealed as Gossip Girl.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you for that. You know, these are our strong opinions. We really laid out all of our opinions here today. So if you have other opinions on these couples, please let us know. If there's someone that you wanted us to talk about that we didn't, let us know. We'll probably do another one of these eps because we could talk about ships all day long.
Yeah, and we didn't mention some of the biggest ships out there, like Seth and Summer on the OC, or Marissa and Ryan on the OC.
Yeah,
we didn't touch the other One Tree Hill couples.
I know,
but we have talked about them a lot in the past, and so if you want to hear more about those couples, you can go back and listen to our episode on love triangles, and maybe the draft one too, because we talk about some couples in that episode as well.
If you want to hear about Belly, Conrad, Jeremiah, Damon, Elena, Stefan, please visit our Love Triangles episode. That's where you'll hear us talk about all that. But we kept it to just ships for this one.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening, and please tune in again next week.
Don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, rate and review us, and you can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram at previouslyon_teentv.
Thanks for listening.